Welcome, friends, to this series of learning containers and Kubernetes. So, we have installed the Docker engine on Linux environments, but in this particular lecture, we will see how we can install the Docker desktop. Now, Docker desktop is an essential tool for developers looking to create, deploy, and run applications using containers. However, installing Docker Desktop can sometimes hit a roadblock, particularly due to issues with the Windows subsystem for Linux, which is popularly known as WSL and Hyper-V. So we will explore how we can install Docker Desktop and how we can handle the unexpected WSL error. So if we follow a couple of practices during the installation of Docker Desktop, we can avoid these Windows subsystem for Linux errors because mostly when we try to run the Docker Desktop on our on-premises system, we can able to enable the Windows hypervisor platform. But in the cloud environment, when we go to install the Docker desktop in a virtual machine, we face the issue because most of the Windows system in the cloud does not get the nested virtualization. Because, see, when you are going to run the containers in a Windows machine, it actually uses the hypervisor or Windows subsystem of the Linux. So on the background, it will install the Ubuntu and then it spin up the containers through the Docker daemon. So actually in the background, virtual Linux runs and it's kind of a virtualized OS. And if your system and hardware does not support these virtualization, you cannot install the Docker desktop. Now, in the cloud environment, as the VM that you are going to spin up from the cloud is actually a virtual machine itself. It's not a physical machine. So you are going to install the Docker daemon. That means you need to install the virtual box inside that virtual machine. So our nested virtualization is essential. So if you follow this particular video, you can able to install the Docker desktop in a virtual machine. And this time we will use Azure from Microsoft to create the virtual machine and we will install the Docker desktop in it. So let's get started. So first and foremost things, this is the Microsoft Azure Web Console. And in this management console, we're going to create the Azure virtual machine. And definitely we will use the Windows to install the Docker desktop. Now, here you can provide the subscription and resource group. So this is not very much mandatory thing. In the virtual machine, you can provide some name of the virtual machine. Maybe I can keep as test sum and make sure you create your VM in some region where uh, the supported VMs are available. So I am going to create this on US East 2 and can be any availability zone. Now here mainly you need to provide the security type as standard and the image should be a Windows one. So Windows, I'm fine with Windows Server 2022 Data Center Azure Edition. And here the size, you need to either specify DV3 or EV3. So only these two machines in some of the regions can uh, support these nested virtualization. So let me provide some user ID, let's say test some and some password. All right. So let's review and create. And validation is passed. Let me create. Now it will take some time to create the resource. So the deployment has been initialized and it will take some time to create the VM. All right. So the deployment is complete. Let me go to the resource. And now we got some public IP address. Let me copy this public IP address. And let me go to my favorite RDP client and let me update this hostname and let me connect to this VM. All right, so our Windows machine have been um, booted up. Now let's go to this feature, turn Windows features on and off. And over here, let's choose role-based, feature-based installation. And then server is fine. And now over here, you need to specify Hyper-V and you need to add these in your virtual machine. So we are going to enable this Hyper-V virtualization in our system within this virtual machine itself. So let's click next and let us verify if it's everything okay. Now let's next, click next, and let us enable these to Ethernet and let's allow and next and let's click install. All right, the feature installation is done. So let's close this one and let us reboot this machine. Now let's reboot this machine. So now it started to install the features that is Hyper-V. Now let's open this PowerShell. So either you can type over here as PowerShell and run it as administrator. Now, first thing we need to see if we have WSL installed or not. So we can say WSL minus minus version. And if you do so, it is saying that WSL is not installed. So we can install the WSL by specifying WSL install and it started to install the WSL over here. So this is the Windows sub Linux system that will basically needed to run the Docker container in background. Now you need to set the default version of WSL as 2 and so set default version 2. And now it is recommended to restart one more time to have this WSL in effect. All right, so our Windows is back. Now, once the Windows is back, it started to download the Ubuntu system, and it is going to install the WSL actually on this particular server. So this particular step is very much important, and you need to be patient until this Ubuntu system is completely installed and it's running inside this Windows machine. Now it is asking to provide the username, and we will say learning light, and then it is asking the password, and the installation is successful. Now let's minimize this particular window and let's open the Microsoft Edge browser, and it will definitely ask few questions as we just open the Microsoft browser the first time. So let's go the default configuration. And once we are done with this, we will search for Docker desktop over here. And the very first link, we will get it from Docker, and we will install these Docker desktop over here. So we are accepting all the cookies. And let's go to this Docker desktop product. And here you can install it for Windows. So once it is clicked, you can get this installer started to be downloaded. And very soon it will be scanned by the Defender, and then we will be ready to use this exe file. All right. So let's click this open file. And we can see this installer is running, and we can see this is right now unpacking the files, and after that it will start to install the files whatever has been unpacked, and our Docker desktop will be ready to use. So let's wait until this installation is done. Now you can see this installation is done, and we can close and sign out. So once it is signed out, we actually need to relog into these Windows VM, and we will be ready to run our Docker container. So let's log in once again to the same machine. Let's close this stuff, and you can see the Docker desktop is there. We can simply double click this one, and a new window will be popped up for this Docker desktop. And we need to accept the service agreement, and then it will it will ask whether we can sign up or not. So for now, we are continuing without signing it, and we are skipping this survey as well. And now it is starting the Docker engine. All right. So our Docker engine got started, and you can see this little Docker desktop um, tray over here, and you can be sure that Docker instance is running. Now, here you can search for any image over here. Maybe we can search for Nginx, and let's run one Nginx container. So it will first pull the Nginx container, and then once the pulling will be done, then it will start running that particular container. Now, okay, now it is asking for optional setting. Maybe we can just say we need to bind the port 8080 with Docker port 80, and we can say run. And we can go to this container and we can see this particular Docker container is running. And this is the logs. Whatever we see on Docker logs, this container, we can see the same thing over here. It's just a user interface. We can see the entire Docker inspect JSON file over here. We can inspect this particular Docker container, and other stuffs are there. We can go back to these containers, or we can on the left side panel, and we can see this particular Docker container is running, and the port mapping is 8080 with Docker port 80, and it gave a good name like I think the name is pretty good. Docker is very smart giving the name, so Goofy turning, and our Docker container is running. Maybe we can go to this browser once again, Microsoft Edge, and we can simply say HTTP and then colon localhost and 8080. We can see this welcome message from Nginx that is actually running inside the container. So this is how we can run this particular container through Docker desktop. Now here you have different options. This is where you can come back to this particular page where we are having these logs, inspects, mount points, and even we can execute these particular container, and we can go inside this container as well. So let us go inside the container to this exec command, or we can click this external terminal so that it will run this particular command, docker exec minus IT and this particular Docker container ID, and then sh. And now we can go to this folder user share Nginx HTML. We can see index.html is there, and we can say echo hello world from Docker desktop, and we can print it in index.html. And if we go back our browser and if we refresh our page, we can see this message is coming. So this is how we can successfully install the Docker desktop in a Windows virtual machine in Azure system. So not all the Azure VM support this nested virtualization. So there are few, and you can check the details in the Azure help page, which particular virtual machines image can support the nested virtualization, and you can select within that. So DV3 is one of them, and we use the DB3 over here. So if you follow these instructions, you will not get any WSL error because we installed the WSL and then we started to install the Docker desktop. So thank you for watching this video. We hope that you have enjoyed a lot with this video and your problem will be solved with Docker desktop installation. See you in the next video with upcoming new features. Thank you and goodbye.